A badge of honor. Police officers and first responders wear badges to let their communities know they are here to protect and serve. But that's not how it feels today, and the stress of the job is taking its toll, taking lives through suicide and post-traumatic stress injury. A Badge of Honor podcast features the cast of the same name, Sam Horwitz and John Salerno. Sam, John, and the team offer the first responders workshops through their critical incident stress management teams and mental health liaisons to offer state-certified T-COLE credit programs that save lives. It's time to smash through the stigma. It's time to heal from your injury, and it's time to back our blue. Welcome to A Badge of Honor podcast. Here are your hosts, Sam Horwitz and John Salerno.
Hey, welcome to A Badge of Honor with John and Sam, powered by the OBBM network. This is actually part two, right, Sam? Part two with Dr. Olivia Johnson, because we had so much information on episode 61, the first one, that we just could not, we had to bring her back, man, because it was such useful information that we needed to share with everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah. She runs the Blue Wall Institute, and the research that is coming out is amazing. And like she always says, you know, the numbers don't lie. We may not like what they say, but it's out there. Before we bring her on, I want to kudos to you. First, John, if you guys haven't checked out this month's Blues PD magazine, the largest online magazine dedicated to law enforcement profession, go and check out John's article. John, it was a beautiful piggyback on exactly what you discussed in our workshop with the first responders, with, you know, letting the air out, doing it in a smart way, surrounded by the right people. Yep. You shared some of your story. And, you know, if you want to hear more about John's story, and he has hit some of the, I'm not going to call them highlights, but some of the points on this podcast and then in other places, you'll just have to come to one of our workshops to check out and get John's entire story. I think probably with Doc Johnson, we'll hit on a little bit more because it goes into some of the stuff we're going to talk about. If you guys have not seen part one, what we're calling part one, it's episode 61 with Dr. Olivia Johnson. She is the founder, creator of the Blue Wall Institute. She is a veteran and a former police officer, and we welcome Doc Johnson back.
Hey guys, how are you?
Welcome back.
Thanks for having me back. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. You know, we left off, and it's like John said, there was so much kind of swirling. It's like we got to do a part two because your research, the team of people that you worked with, first to put together the ebook, which I think is it's called Practical Considerations for Preventing Police Suicide. You can reach out to Doc Johnson through many of her social media, or just go on. They can get to you on the website, right? Correct. To get a copy. You're going if you are if you run a wellness unit in a PD, if you are a chief, lieutenant, if you are responsible for training, you need to get this ebook. You need to devote the time. It's heavily research based, and it doesn't matter if you're not a researcher. I'm not a researcher. It's just about time to sit down to digest, because Doc, what you're bringing to the forefront about the effects on what is causing suicide in policing, I'll say in first responder totality, our world, some of what you're finding out is a little, well, it's not a little bit, it's surprising. And like I said in the intro, not everybody's gonna like this. They can disagree with it all they want. But the facts are the facts. And if it's okay with you, to just dive into one of the one of the big points that you hit right off the bat, which is ACEs, childhood ACEs.
Yeah, we're actually realizing that has more play than almost anything else when we start looking at things. And of course, I'm not a clinician, but we have clinical components, and there were clinical components on the book. But Dr. Jory Crossan is also with the Blue Wall Institute. And we're really looking into that big time, because we're realizing that a lot of the stuff that we're bringing with us is actually what's being triggered later on. It's not necessarily the things that you're dealing with day to day right now. And you're not understanding what's happening because the time frames don't add up. There's just so much going on that we're kind of just, we're kind of, I don't know, swooshing over it, so to speak, pushing it under the rug, pushing it back, whatever. We're just kind of going, hey, we're getting by right now. Things are okay. And then there's a major event. And then we have an officer in crisis. And I said, we're doing this all wrong. We're doing this all wrong. Just because you have something in your childhood that may be considered one of the ACEs things that's a big, big point of contention here doesn't necessarily going to disqualify you from one of these jobs. But we're actually looking at this in a different way, where we almost want to expect that this is going to happen because most people have some kind of trauma or some kind of event in their life that really shapes them and how they deal with stress and how they move along in life. It's very pivotal for them. And we believe that, with that being said, we should almost expect that to be the case for many first responders. There's a reason many of us come into these jobs. And we get really honest about why we're here, we may not get to the bottom of that. So with that being said, we're actually looking at maybe eventually making something where we can have this legislated, where we have 2 weeks of intensive treatment before you come into this career field to take care of those things. You either take care of them in the front end, or you're going to be dealing with them in your agency literally throughout the time that you have these individuals here, or you're going to have a major event in your agency that's going to be it's going to be a black eye to your agency. It could be something worse, where someone's fired, possibly going to jail. We've got to deal with this stuff, and we need to start being honest about it. We're not doing the right type of testing. We need to change stuff that is not working, and we need to stop using excuses like, well, since we're going to be, limiting who we're bringing in, we're going to be digging bottom of the barrel. Folks, we already have problems in this profession, and we need to start owning that. Right? We need to start owning our part of that. And I think we have failed on that level to own what we know, and we're not fixing stuff when we move forward.
Well, Doc, you bring up such an amazing point, because we've peeled that onion, right? But you actually are peeling more layers off. We stopped at one point peeling that onion. We stopped at one layer. You're going, no, let's look under this layer now. And let's, and we're looking, there's more layers, like cracking an atom and going, oh, look, there's more stuff inside, So that's what you're doing. And we're digging deeper, and we're gonna find not so much a cure, but we're gonna find a program that's gonna help, because you brought this up with the coping mechanisms. If during my recruitment in the PD, if they would have went over ACEs, which I had no idea back then what that was all about. If they said, hey, if you were abused as a child, write it down. If you had an alcoholic father, write it down. If you grew up in a single family household, write it down. And then you digest that. And then, like you just said, 2 weeks of intense training before you go into the police academy to learn those coping. I never knew my coping mechanisms was so skewed that I wouldn't be able to cope. And that's how they come out a long time later, because I didn't fix it in the front end. I had the explosion in the back end.
Yeah. And John, when you said about the onion, it was really funny, because when I first started looking at doing the research, I had many organizations that were really happy about this, because they wanted that onion, that first layer peeled, and they wanted it to fit their agenda. And their agenda was, keep telling these men and women it's all PTSD. Keep telling them it's not their fault. Keep telling them it's the job. And I kept, for a while, I think I was blinded by that, because I just thought, there's got to be an answer here. That's got to be it. That's got to be it. But when I started looking, and I realized, no, it's not just the job, and the onion started to become, it was getting peeled further back. Then they started realizing that it didn't fit their agenda anymore. Then they wanted to start shutting it down, because now they can't use the excuse that it's just the job and it's just this and it's just that, because right now it's about personal accountability. And we have given this victim mindset for so long to these men and women that everything they do is okay, and it's explained away by the job. And now we have a bunch of people running around making really poor choices and really bad, coping skills, and they're getting worse day by day. And these same organizations that will give them an excuse for their behavior will stand by until they are literally not here anymore.
Wow, that's a mic drop moment. We're going to take it right into our first break. We will be right back, everybody.
All right.
Move freely, America, without medical restrictions or penalty. Without medical freedom legislation in place, our rights and freedoms are one vote away from being dissolved. Move freely, America, with one voice, without fear of retribution, achieving a common goal, medical freedom. We the people make our voices heard by connecting with state legislators and engaging a constitutionally compliant medical bill of rights for all citizens. Individually, change is improbable, but as an aggregate, attainable. It's time to act with one voice. My voice.
And my voice.
And my voice.
And my voice.
To protect our freedom, creating one voice that cannot be ignored. This requires your voice, too. Move Freely America. Go to movefreelyamerica.org to find a chapter near you. Plug in, donate, and help our legislators defend our God-given rights under the Constitution. Move Freely America. My voice.
And my voice.
And together with your voice, we're one voice that cannot be ignored. Donate today. MoveFreelyAmerica.org.
Hey, welcome back to a Badge of Honor podcast with John and Sam. We're welcoming back Dr. Olivia Johnson with the Blue Wall Institute, and we are peeling back the onion even further. Maybe making a couple people cry like an onion does. We maybe bring some tears to people's eyes, but that's how we move on. We get mentally healthier because we learn more about the process of healing. And Doc, before we left, we're talking about peeling that onion and what the coping mechanisms and how everybody deals with certain things, certain parts of stress throughout the job. And I'm sitting here thinking, as we were talking before, is if we took care of this stuff in the beginning, if we knew somebody's background, right? Why do some officers deal with their stress with alcohol? Why do some deal with drugs or porn or gambling or this? It's because something in their childhood sparks that behavior, right? If you grew up with an alcoholic father, your go-to is going to be alcohol. A gambling father or a mother, that's going to be your go-to because that's what you know. That's your norm, right? As a child, that's what you've seen around you. So do you think that plays a role into how we cope with the stuff that we see on the job, the stresses on the job?
I think that's part of it, but I think, and again, I said, I'm not a clinician, but I think, they're exposed to so much. And I think just the job alone, the alcohol it is what it is. I mean, that's just if you're not participating, then they don't really trust you. There's actually research out there that says if you go out with a group of people that you work with and maybe you're the designated driver and you don't work, they don't trust you. So right. It's kind of one of those things. It's like a rite of passage. And I think you start learning many of these other things to cope. It's just part of, I think being in the first responder community is we have this idea that every day you go to work is a day that you can possibly die. And I think that we have gotten this idea that this job is so dangerous and so deadly that we need to reel back for a second. And we need to realize, in fact, I just had a young lady recently in one of my classes. She was a dispatcher. And she told her parents that she thought she would like to become a police officer. And her parents were extremely discouraged. And they told her it's not safe. You're going to get shot, blah, blah, blah. And it just went on and on and on. And I'm like, statistically speaking, if you are going to get shot, it's not by the bad guy. Let's be honest here. If we're going to talk statistics, let's really lay down the truth here. The truth is, if you're healthy and you have good coping skills, you can have a really long career and you can be very healthy and you can do many things. But if you go into a career believing that every day you're going to get shot and you're hyper vigilant, you start playing into that, and you really truly believe that, number one, that's not true. And you're going to feed on that. You're going to become unwell with unhealthy coping mechanisms because every day you're going to work, you're going to think someone's going to shoot you. That's right. Not healthy. And yet those are the kind of things that we keep telling officers every single day. I mean, what are the stats on pulling a gun, let alone shooting one in someone's career? It's very low, especially shooting a firearm, very low. Yet everybody thinks that that's what happens every day. You know,
it's called the movies.
Yes.
And
Yep.
TV.
And we're
Yeah.
not setting them straight though, Sam. There's the problem.
Right.
We want them to believe it. It's like the poster, what my parents think I do, what my friends think I do, what I think I do. It's that kind of poster.
Right.
And none of those are really truly accurate. They just have a different vantage point. And we need to get back to what's accurate.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a big part of why you and the team that contributed to, again, it's called Practical Considerations for Preventing Police Suicide, is so key. Besides the adverse childhood events and how that plays in to how an officer either does really well or doesn't do well. And I think it was part of what I read is the interesting reactions that some first responders have if they're called to if they have to go out and deal with a call that involves a child, and that's where building the resilience. If you know that you have this in your background, and whether it's abuse, neglect, whatever it is from the childhood, and you're walking in to a situation having not resolved what happened to you, chances are eventually, if you work enough of those kinds of calls, something may occur. Having a stress reaction to trauma is totally normal.
Right.
To everybody, but it's the continuation of whether it brings back nightmares, the hypervigilance, it's the change. And you talk about that in the book, and you also talk about paying attention to the people that you work with. So let's give a for instance, you have an officer who gets through the psych, whatever the background is for their department, because it's everybody does their own. And they're already in 10 years. They have had 2 child calls, and then they go to a family domestic that goes way bad, and children are injured or killed, and then all of a sudden they're calling out sick. They're coming to work with their uniform not dry cleaned. They look exhausted. We have eyes for a reason. We have ears for a reason. We know this is not the same person that reported for work a week ago.
Right.
What are the ramifications to having departments that don't teach? You got to look out for your own. You got to speak up, not to the command, not to like go around to talk behind the officer, but to help each other and support each other.
Yeah. And I mean, the sad thing is, even in society, we can see that right now that's not working. I mean, it's just not. I mean, I can tell you on one hand, probably with 2 of those fingers, how many people have checked up on me, in certain times when they knew things weren't well. They check on you once and they think they've done their due diligence, and then they move on. Or they say something and you pacify them, or you get a little angry, and then they go, well, I guess they don't need anything. So I think we think that we're doing someone a service, but part of the problem is we don't know how to respond, because we haven't been taught appropriately what we need to do to make sure we don't overstep that line and get somebody in trouble. And yet I tell people, you're not here to be friends, right? You're not here to be friends with people. You're here to get them home to their loved ones. And there's going to come a point in time when you're going to have to call out somebody's behavior or call them to the side or whatever, and they're not going to like you. I'm okay with that. I'm not going home to your house when I go home from work, but you're going home to your family. So if you hate me for the next 20 years, as long as you're 6 feet above ground, I don't give, I really just, I don't care, because I'm going to make sure that I take care of you. And I think we've just lost the ability to, on a human level, connect. And that was one of our leading things, was the interpersonal relationships. That ACEs screws everything up too, because we don't trust people, right? What do you think we don't trust people? because people have proven time and time again since we were children they are untrustworthy. And usually those aces are surrounding people that are supposed to be in a caretaking, type of role that were supposed to protect us from bad things happening. And either they failed to protect us or they were part of the people that hurt us. So then we add on top of that, we come into an occupation where you trust no one because everybody lies to you. And we wonder why we have problems. I mean, it's not like this isn't a far stretch here to understand that we are very, slow to trust people. And then even when we do, even in adult relationships, over time, we find that people will, they'll be untrustworthy. Maybe even we were at some point. So over and over again, you just don't trust. So how is this next person that you're going to tell me about, or this clinician or that person going to take care of this and I can trust them fully? It's just not going to happen. You've got to prove yourself through relationships, and you've got to build back that trust with people. Trust isn't something that you get, right away. It's earned, and it can be lost in a second. And I tell people, if you need something, I'm not a clinician, but I do confidential peer support. When you call me, if it's not something that I need to call someone else about because it's an important issue or you're in crisis, it stays with me till the next time you call, if you should call back. That's how it works. And yet we don't do that. We talk about the shit we see. We talk about how somebody came into work looking like a train wreck. We talk about all that stuff like hens in a hen house, and we wonder why they don't trust us and come forward.
Yeah, that is very true. We're diving into a lot of stuff here on the podcast tonight with Dr. Olivia Johnson from the Blue Wall Institute. We got to take our next break. We'll be right back, everybody.
Interested in starting a podcast or TV show? Worried about what you'll say and how to keep it engaging? Think you'd like to be a guest on podcast, radio, or TV shows? Hi, I'm Susan Hamilton, owner and founder of OBBM Network, and I would like to invite you to an OBBM media training to get the tools you need for a relaxed and polished performance we'll be proud to share. Our specialized training techniques include role play, voice training, and everything you need to deliver a confident, clear, and engaging interaction. Go to offbeatbusiness.com. Go to the calendar and register for a training that's convenient for you. Dates available now, 214-714-0495.
Hey, welcome back to a Badge of Honor podcast with John and Sam, and welcoming back Dr. Olivia Johnson with the Blue Wall Institute. We've been peeling. We're going to continue with this, peeling this onion back, and we're going to come up with some sort of, not a solution, but maybe a path that we can go down that can better make our first responders more healthy. So welcome back, everybody. Olivia, we talk about the coping mechanisms. We talk about actually, instead of saying, hey, how you doing? I'm fine, and leaving it at that, we have to learn the skills to continue. And without being demeaning or strong-arming anybody, we have to learn how to talk to people on a level that they understand if they're in crisis. So I don't think there's a police officer out there that couldn't talk a jumper off a building. They're going to sit there. They're going to use compassion. They're going to talk to them. They're going to, do whatever they can to bring them down. But when it comes to blue on blue or, red on red, why can't we do that? What's holding us back? We go out and save lives every day. We'll pull somebody off a rooftop, but why can't we sit in a locker room and go, let's try it, man. Let's talk.
Yeah, no, it's because, and I there's a couple things here I want to address. So we treat the community better than we treat our own. And I think someone else said that recently, and it's so true. And yet most people will agree. You'll get a couple of them on there that say, BS, that's not true. I'm like, I don't know what agency you're in. Maybe it hasn't happened to you, and that's great. But we are part of that whole culture of, when we talk about the stigma and smashing the stigma and all that, we are the culture. I mean, there's no everybody else here. This is what we do. And we're afraid of being judged by our peers about how we talk to them and what we say and sharing our feelings. But we do that with somebody on the street if they were in crisis. That's what we do. So, right. We are part of the problem here. When you first started off, one of the things that came to my mind is there was something on LinkedIn recently, and it really hit me. It was called an article that someone had wrote, and it was called Grief Groceries. And I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. I'm going to look at this. And it was the same mindset that we kind of have is, instead of asking, hey, John, I know that you just had someone in your life pass away. I know that you're going through a lot. Can I get you anything? John's going to say no, because John doesn't want to be a burden to anybody, right? And as soon as John would tell, like, let's say it's just a coworker, yeah, man, I could use A, B, and C. Give me, I need some beer. I need milk. I need cereal for the kids, blah, blah. And then, your friend will be like, well, shit, that added up to a lot. Or why does he need beer right now? See, they start judging you immediately, right? So what
Right.
Grief Groceries in this article, to sum it up, was stop asking what people need and just do it. So the call was made to the individual, said, hey, are you going to be home at 8:30 tonight? Now my mind would have been like, I don't want any people coming over, so maybe not. And then they'd be like, listen, something's getting delivered at 8:30. I just want to know that you're going to be there. That's all I need to know. And then they go, yeah, I'll be there. And then they get groceries. It doesn't matter what you think. Just figure out what you think they like and have it delivered, because most people need the staples. And they did that. And it's like, stop asking people to do things. Just do it. Right. And it's real simple. It's like, just think about what you need, and you know that you're going to tell everybody the same thing. Just ask for help. And what happens when you ask for help? Somebody reaches out online and they say, hey, guys, they go into a chat room and they say, hey, my electric bill's behind. Could anybody help? And then what happens? Oh, it's a scam. They asked for help last month. They did this, they did that. And then they go, you know what? I'm not asking for help again, because we are so quick to judge everybody's situation, not knowing a damn thing about it, and thinking that somehow we have this expertise in like figuring out what the hell they're trying to get money for. It's like, listen, if you don't want to give, don't give. Otherwise, shut the hell up and move on.
But it goes back to that. It goes back to the trust thing.
Exactly. We don't trust. And I mean, I get that. But listen, if you can't part with $10 or $15, then shut your damn mouth and go buy a couple beers. Like, like we need to stop doing all of that BS. Like, we can't tell people to come forward and ask for help. And then the moment that they do, we have to give them a criteria and a protocol on how they need to do it. Like, you can't say the word committed when we talk about suicide, and you can't say this and you can't say that. It's like, listen, people aren't going to come forward if you have all these expectations on what they can and cannot do before they ask. Or God forbid you go to the store and you ask for assistance, and then someone sees you out carrying a new purse. Well, how in the hell does she need help with groceries when she got a new purse? Maybe she got it for a Christmas present. See, you don't know, and you're already making assumptions. That's what we do. We don't want to get scammed. So it's kind of the idea that with the ACEs stuff, as children, when shit happens to you that's bad, you keep people at arm's length, because I'm going to get you before you get me. And I'm going to figure how you're going to scam me before you do. And I'm not going to let it happen. So everybody around me becomes a problem, and I'm just waiting for them to hurt me. And that's literally how I feel like a lot of people are operating right now.
Well, that's law enforcement. That's law enforcement, because anybody you approach, you are automatically judging them to find a threat or to find the inconsistencies in their story. Right. Or so you do that on a daily basis, but we forget, we don't know how to separate the criminal element from the people that we work with and our friends and family and our coworkers. We don't know how to separate that.
No, and then guess what we do? We ruin relationships, and that's our leading issue. And yet, when you tell people that the majority of our cases of completed suicide were either pending divorce, going through a divorce, a nasty divorce, we're in mid-fight during the murder-suicide, they don't want to believe it. I'm like, how do you not believe this? And yet you guys brag about having 3, 4, 5 marriages like it's some kind of badge of honor. I'm like, we have problems, folks. We can't keep blaming the beer and the bars. I said, we have got to take a look in the mirror and realize that we are dysfunctional, and everyone is dysfunctional at some level and in some way. But when you don't get assistance for that level of dysfunction, and it keeps growing, and you're almost applauded for being this way because it helps you in your job. So it's almost feeding this monster, so to speak. It becomes a real big issue, because these relationships that aren't working out, you start blaming everybody but you. And then you get these other organizations that say, yeah, it's not your fault. I mean, God, what did you expect to have happen with 2 dysfunctional people? I mean, this is your job. And they blame the other person as being dysfunctional. It's just your job. It's your long hours. It's the stress. It's the trauma. And it's like, that's bullshit. And we all know it. Like we all know it. Like we all bring a negative component to our relationships in some way. And it's not just the long hours, guys. It's not just the job. It's what we do or don't do in that relationship to keep it healthy.
Yeah. And this is the kind of thing that needs to be talked about in the beginning.
Yes.
The training needs to happen. And, we were talking before we came live, and I'm smiling because I'm looking at the post now. You post something, and it's self-admitted. Sometimes people come after you saying you're controversial and whatever. It's just like they need to keep reading the research. But you have this you have this post that says, breaking news: some want to keep you unwell because it keeps you dependent on them. How long are you willing to be sick?
Yeah. I mean, and we said part of the change in what we're doing with the research is we're stopping what's happening because what we're doing is not working. And I mean, anyone with you don't have to be a detective to figure this out. I don't know how long anybody else wants to keep going, but we told somebody recently that runs a major organization. His comment to me was, Olivia, I have worked 30 years to put names of suicides on the wall. And I was literally flabbergasted. And I said, well, sir, I'm very sorry you've worked 30 years for that, because we've been working 15 years, because I'm not as old as you, 15 years to not have names on the wall at all, which should be a goal here, as I would recollect, right? And he kind of sat there and he did agree with me. But I thought, we're not even on the same page on the battles we are fighting here, folks. Like, if you are spending more time worried about getting someone's name on the wall than keeping it off, you shouldn't even be in charge of an organization. I'm just throwing it out there. Like, you should not be in charge. Our agendas are in the wrong, like the agendas that are being run right now want to keep a lot of people unwell, and they don't see it because I'm not coming around telling you I want to keep you unwell. It's just happening by virtue of my actions. So we said, enough's enough. Like the normal everyday medical model is the disease model. We wait till you get sick, you get a sore throat, you don't feel well, you run to the doctor, you hope there's a cure. And it's just how we operate. We don't have time to be down. We said, no, why are we waiting for officers to be in crisis? This is the worst place to take care of them, because they're not coming forward. Listen, if on a good day and they're having a kind of a shit day, they're not going to come forward with that, like something that's bothering them. They're not coming forward on their day of crisis. They're just not going to do it. They're going to isolate. They're going to be in their own head. They're going to have a lot of other things going on. They're going to be drinking. I said, why are we waiting for this person to be in crisis and then throw them a lifeline? Oh, here's the suicide prevention number. Here, we'll make it easier. 988. It's like, why are we waiting for people to be in crisis, guys? Like, we're missing the whole boat here. So we said, enough with the disease model. We need to start inoculating people. And inoculation means we jump to the health model, which is this positive psychology spin on it, which is we need to keep people well. You will still have people that will die by suicide. People will still die in general, and they will die by suicide. We can't change that. What we can do is we can reduce numbers, and we can stop dealing with the mass amounts of people that are in crisis at one time, because we're actually taking care of them before the issues that they have surmount into something major and turns into a major life crisis for them.
Absolutely. And another thing, is we got to stop being punitive with, like you said, we'll get you help, but you have to do X, Y, Z. We've got that fit for duty thing that still to this day is floating out there, which is another reason why folks don't get help. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the Fatal 10, and you've got a documentary that you and some freaking awesome people just did. And we're going to cover that when we come back. Stay tuned, everybody.
Look, when you need to respond to an aggressive situation to protect yourself, your family, or your property, understanding your firearm and legal position are critical. Officers know your skills are only as good as your commitment to training. So know what you're doing. So when you're in a vulnerable situation, we can count on your response. Whether you're a beginner or a licensed gun carrier, Carry in Texas offers basic firearms training, Texas permitless carry courses, license to carry, and basic 2A courses so you can understand the responsibilities, situational awareness, and learn the technical skill required when you carry your firearm. Go to carryintexas.com to find the right course for you. Join me, former United States Secret Service agent Samantha Horwitz, on the range for beginner basics, LTC prep, and range practice. Go to carryintexas.com today. That's carryintexas.com.
Hey, welcome back to a Badge of Honor podcast with John and Sam, and welcoming back Dr. Olivia Johnson with the Blue Wall Institute. Man, there's just, again, we're really getting to the core of this onion through so many different avenues. And, you know, I hope the people that are listening are really taking notes or just going into this with an open mind. Because, you know, like you said, Olivia, people are going, you know, they get mad at you because they're like, oh, this is so wrong. This is so wrong. Open up your minds a little bit and just look at what we're discussing in here. You know, think out of the box for a minute. We keep we're beaten with the PTSD stick all throughout our careers. Now let's look at something a little different. Let's think outside the box and dive into what Olivia is talking about. And I think it makes perfect sense on so many different levels. You know, the stigma is beaten into us. This is what's going to happen to me when I become a cop. This is going to be throughout my career. This is what's going to be happening to me. You know, we just did a workshop last week, and, you know, we asked, why are some cops not having issues and some cops are? You know, one of those cops at that workshop, we took the workshop, you know, as we spoke to him, he's like, no, I'm perfectly fine. He had maybe 11, 12 years on a job. I go home, I work out, you know, I sit with my family. I know how to decompress. Why? Because he's got coping mechanisms that fall into place, right? And another guy, you know, how do you do it? Oh, I go home and drink. Well, why? Well, why do you go home and drink? You know, so there's so many different elements that come into this. And I think you're hitting it right on, bullseye.
Yeah, and you know, when those and listen, I'm not telling you not to drink because I'm a beer girl. I love my Busch Light. Okay, I love my Busch Light. But if I came home every night and that was my go-to every single night, and I disregarded my family and any responsibilities I had, that's why you start having the other issues. It starts to snowball. People aren't going to want to be around you. That's depending on the fact that if you're just having a couple to unwind, or if you're actually getting drunk and passing out every night too. There's kind of, you know, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on here. You're ruining your relationships because you're not investing the time and the energy that you do in your drinking. I mean, you know, it's real simple to figure out here, guys, that we have problems. And once we've been drinking for a long time and we start to have a dependency on it, it's something that you almost have to do. You got to get help for that. It's not just going to go away on its own. So in the meantime, you're ruining a lot of other things in your life, like your relationships, you're ruining your sleep, your health. And then those are part of the fatal 10. So when you start realizing that what you did in your 20s and 30s, yeah, that shit might have been fun for a minute, even if you can remember it. But be honest, you're going to keep drinking and you're going to have issues. But as you age, your body's also breaking down. So those health issues are going to pop up out of nowhere. And when they do, they're going to scare you to death. And if you haven't been honest with your doctor up to this point about how much you're drinking and what you're doing to your body, then you're lying to everybody around you. They may know you're drinking, but they may not know to what extent. They may not know the health issues you're facing because you're not being open and honest about it. So inside, you're hiding and you're lying and you're manipulating that stuff. So that, again, is going against the relationship and the trust issues. So the things that you don't like about other people, you're creating in your own relationship.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a vicious cycle.
You know, we talk about this all the time. It's like, okay, if you're the kind of person, you know, you're noticing that you need the drink, you have to have the drink to calm down or to chill out, or, you know, you want it to, so that you can avoid something. Those are red flags. And you know, we really were very appreciative of the officer that shared that is the way that he copes, so that the young people in the room, we could unpackage that. Be like, here's why you don't want to do that. And self-admittedly, he's like, because I just want to shut everything out. Okay. And so he was far down. So it was like, all right, let's reel it back in and let's unpackage this. If you guys are just tuning in, we're talking to Dr. Olivia Johnson from the Blue Wall Institute, and I've got the website up on the screen. So if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast app, it is bw-institute.com. Okay. So Blue Wall Institute, bw-institute.com. And you can, it's a wonderful website, chock full of information. You can connect with Dr. Johnson there as well. You know, we talked about, we went over all of the fatal 10s in the previous episode. You guys can go back to episode 61 and Doc rattles them off, and it's like, when you did, it's just like, yeah, check, 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 check. I mean, when John and I went down the list, and we're like, and it's so true. And you're coming to this from the inoculation standpoint versus the prevention standpoint. That is also something that is huge, because this is out there. This topic is out there. It's been out there. 2019, I think, was 1819 was the largest amount of recorded suicides from our first responder community. It's come down. It's come down from there, which is good. We have to keep talking about it. And that means we need to learn communication skills. We also need to pay attention to the people we work with, and we need our loved ones. I mean, we start, if your loved ones, like, why are you such an asshole all the time? That's a red flag. And you and Scott Medlin, who's been on the podcast, amazing. You guys put a lot of this in a documentary called "Is There Something Going On at Home?" And if you don't mind, I think this is a perfect time to play the trailer so that folks can get an idea of what we're talking about. So the documentary is called "Is There Something Going On at Home?" Here it is.
At first, it seemed like everything was going to be great. He took care of Angela. He took her everywhere. He played with her. Really a good father. And then I remember him saying to me that I was a federal agent working with the DEA, going after some of the baddest criminals out there, and now I'm home babysitting a baby. He was not able to let go of the job at all. And he had to focus that energy somewhere. And it was on us. And it was a living nightmare.
So I used to get these flashbacks all the time. And that's what I think started me going into a spiral downhill.
I came home, I was irritable to her. She said, "You're not gonna bring that home to me." When she did say that, yeah, it started to hit like, I'm not who I thought I was. I mean, this job has changed me. So many police officers are not gonna admit that.
He goes back after 5 weeks and it is still fresh. That baby is still fresh and I'm still tired. And you're having these weird shifts and I got to keep this baby asleep. It's the first tinge of single parentdom.
Every class I ask this question, how many communities do we belong to? And family is always brought up. And which is the most important community? And it's always family. But if that's the case, why is our divorce rate so high?
How about if you teach them both in the relationship how to win at the relationship so they both get what they want and they're happy and healthy. And if something happens here, they know that when they go home, they have stable people, they have support, they have people that love them unconditionally and will do whatever the next step is. That's what we need.
Is there something going on at home? Is a big question.
Wow, that's
very powerful. And of course, we're our time is running short. In these last couple of minutes, how can people watch this? Where do they get it?
So it's actually on Amazon right now. They can actually download it and watch it. And that's a Jason Harney film, Deb Ortiz as well. That was a great documentary. They did a really wonderful job. The Lightning Productions on the front there. Also, I'll get you a link as well for people to watch. I don't have it right off the top of my head, but it's wonderfully done. It's about just over 40 minutes. So it's something you can sit down with your family. I highly suggest that people do. It starts to open up the idea that we know something is going on at home, but it really addresses addresses some really serious issues in families that I know that they're dealing with right now. And it brings kind of the conversation to the forefront, because it's so hard sometimes to start those conversations. So why not have a documentary playing, and then when it gets done, you're like sitting back, like talking about it, because it really does spur that conversation, that what needs to happen next.
Yep.
Absolutely. And I think we're going to put the Blue Wall Institute, we're going to put your logo as on our website, and people can go there. And you guys are on social media, and I think scrolling through Instagram or LinkedIn, there was a QR code that you could get that would give you the details on how to grab the documentary and watch it. And sometimes we need that. So Doc, kind of where are you playing out there on social media? Where can people connect with you?
LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Those are about the 4 that I do. I try to kind of manage those, but I'm all over the place, and you can still get in touch with me from the website. My phone number's out there, my email. I'm pretty open. So.
And again, it's the Blue Wall Institute, and you can find them if you want to Google it. Just put Blue Wall Institute, or go direct to the website, bw-institute.com. Again, there's so much information. Get the book, get the ebook. You don't have to be like a research scientist to understand it. It's written in a way also where you can understand. And that's also a great jumping off point for conversations in a lot of different ways, whether you're a command in the department, whether you're a wellness coordinator. Come on, spouses, go out and read it as well. Because while there are aspects of the job where we may see changes in our loved ones, in ourselves, that doesn't mean we have to accept what is happening. That is an inkling. That is a what do I want to say? A clue that you should be reaching out to someone so that 988 number never comes into play. There isn't crisis. You're taking care of you, because that's part of your wellness recipe while you're on the job. And it's okay. How about that? And you don't have to ask permission. You have insurance. You can go out and if you want some ideas, if you want to know how to get in contact with some practitioners that can help you, reach out to Doc Johnson. Go to Blue Wall. Get connected. And Doc, what do you want to say to the first responders out there?
My whole point of doing the research is because we want happy, healthy officers who go back home and have happy, healthy, stable relationships. And I will fight till my last breath to make sure that they understand that I'm not just throwing something out there to piss people off, even if it does. Eventually, we've got to do something different here if we want the outcome to be different. And I love my first responders, and I will literally fight for them every single day.
Well, amen to that. And, I think John would agree that those of us that have been separated from the job for a while need to also fight for people like you, and the people that you work with that are putting out the information that is saving lives. And those people that don't want to be part of the solution, gosh, if you're listening to this and you're in a department like that, there are plenty of really good departments out there that will have your back. So don't be afraid to reach out as well to get connected, because you deserve to be surrounded by command that really takes your well-being into account. And you deserve it. Your family deserves it. Your kids deserve it. The community deserves it. So, Doc, thank you so much for coming back on the podcast again, talking about just critically important items of information that, they have to be digested and they have to be put into place. And stop I want departments to stop going after the same grants over and over and over again, to never produce a wellness, whatever you want to call it, out of the money that you're getting. You don't need to be a rocket scientist. Reach out to Doc Johnson. Get ideas. Take care of your troops. At the end of the day, take care of your troops. Doc, we'll be in touch. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You too. Bye.
So this was great. And if you follow Doc Johnson, follow the Blue Wall Institute on Instagram, on Facebook. Some of her posts will make you smile. They'll make you laugh. They'll make you go, whoa, what does she mean by that? They'll make you want to look into more. And so give yourself a gift of connecting to the Blue Wall Institute. And again, for those of you who are listening to us on your favorite podcast app, you can Google Blue Wall Institute or go to bw-institute.com. And, if you thank you to all of our new viewers who keep coming over from Instagram, watching on Instagram. We thank you so much. Hey, follow us over there at A Badge of Honor on Instagram. We're all over the interwebs as well. Just hit that like button on YouTube, subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss an episode of the podcast. Another organization that's really doing some great work in bringing the veteran community together, the active duty community and first responders are these guys right here, Carry the Load. I got the banner up. We have been blessed to have been chosen to be nonprofit partners again this year. We've got the work is never done. As you heard from Dr. Johnson, the work is never done because people and things change and you got to evolve with it. And you got to look at stuff that isn't so easy to look at every single day, but we got to do that. And we're so grateful to Carry the Load and how they have their give back to support organizations like us. So visit carrytheload.org. And if you are one of the first responders out there, and you're connecting with what Doc Johnson said, and you know that things aren't off the rails, you just know that something isn't what you're not functioning as you used to. You can reach out directly to us, abadgeofhonor.org. We have become partners with 22-0. I'm actually going to take us down, put them up. And they've got a first responder program. I am one of the facilitators for their tactical resiliency training protocols. So if you know it's you, don't wait. Don't wait. You deserve it. And we can work together 1, 2, 3 times. And I promise you, you will be feeling a whole lot better. Why? Because John and I have both been through the protocols. We dove into the training. So did the other John. And so we can offer that to you. So 220.org for all of the events. And we've got a ton of events going on. We've got Backing the Blue Denton this month. Next month, we've got a first responder family workshop. You can find out more information how to get in on that. Just hit us up with whatever you need. And like I said, we'll be putting Blue Wall Institute logo on our site so that everybody can get in touch with Doc Johnson if they want to. To all of our first responders out there, we love you. We're praying for you every day. You deserve the best. Take the responsibility. Put it on you to say, I am going to be the best officer that I can, the best first responder that I can, because you deserve it. Your family deserves it. To all the veterans out there, thank you for fighting the good fight to allow us to do a show like this and speak our minds every week. And to all the active duty personnel that's keeping us safe all over the world, because John, things are getting a little hairy again. We thank you for everything that you do. John, take us home.
Man, just to reiterate what you said, things are getting a little hairy out there. But to every officer out there, you know what? Don't let the politics get involved. Don't let them weigh on you, man. Just always remember your why. Go out there and be the best that you can be. and don't let these politicians dictate how you run your job, and be that person. Remember your why. That's it, man.
All right. Peace. We'll see you next week, everybody. Take care.
A Badge of Honor podcast is produced for the OBBM Network podcast and protected under copyright law. For content permissions, please submit your request to abadgeofhonor.com on the content page. For OBBM Network programming information, please call 214-714-0495 today.